Next on Worcester News Tonight, it's been 50 years since the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Some here in the city remembering the event like it was yesterday. Plus, a reminder from the Mass DOT, a portion of I-90 will be closed tonight through the early morning tomorrow. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Anna Botari. Wednesday marked 50 years since Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. The civil rights leader was shot in Memphis, Tennessee on this day in 1968. Here in Worcester, some remember exactly where they were when they heard the news. Our Cam Jandro joins us now live with the details. Cam?
Anna, in the 1960s, Martin Luther King became a global icon. His assassination is one of the most infamous moments in American history, and for some, April 4th, 1968 is a very fond memory.
Like all of a sudden a weight had been put on you and just had to sit down.
I just felt numb.
The time was 7:05 p.m. Martin Luther King Jr. was pronounced dead in a Tennessee hospital. George Yancey remembers it like it was yesterday.
Once we got the news that he had been assassinated, you could just see people, their whole soul just dropped, because he had been such a leader.
Community activist Bill Coleman was 13 at the time of Dr. King's assassination. He says he was riding his bike in a segregated Philadelphia neighborhood when he heard the news.
There was a sandwich shop where they sold cheesesteaks, and a guy comes running out of the sandwich shop saying, "They got King. They got that King guy."
Yancey was a college student, and he and a group of friends went to Atlanta for Dr. King's funeral.
That was a moving experience. There were, I have no idea how many, like hundreds of thousands of people there. Everything was shut down. That wagon drawn by those mules pulling him in, and that in itself, how humble that was.
Coleman and Yancey say the dream of Martin Luther King is still alive today.
Fighting is not the answer. Talking is the answer.
The example that King gave everyone was just something you couldn't compare to anybody else.
Now, Yancey is the first vice president of the Worcester branch of the NAACP. He says to this day, they're still waiting for Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream to come true. Anna?
Thanks, Cam. Many took time today to remember how powerful Dr. King's messages were. And as our Brittany Schaefer explains, some of those messages were shared in Worcester.
One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
50 years ago, the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. shook the nation.
I still remember it today. For the very first time, I saw my father cry. And he said, they took him. They took him.
Robert Johnson is chancellor of the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth. He says the anniversary of Dr. King's assassination is a solemn day, especially because of his personal ties to the King family.
My Uncle Bob, who was a classmate of Dr. King's at Morehouse in the class of 48, who knew him very well, and of course Martin Luther King III, his son and I, we were classmates at Morehouse together. So this also has a very personal meaning for me. We're talking about how one individual literally transformed the world.
Dr. King spoke at the Temple Emmanuel in Worcester in 1961.
The spirit of Worcester and the spirit of what he did here in Worcester has just had a huge impact on this community.
7 years later, Worcester held numerous memorials in the days following his death.
The reaction is community-wide. You can see how long it is. It stretches way back. This is in front of the former courthouse. And later that day, the reports are that 1,000 students from Clark and Holy Cross marched down to Worcester Common and had a prayer service.
And now 50 years later, the powerful words and actions of Dr. King still affect people today.
As a community, as a country, as a world, we celebrate the legacy of Dr. King, his vision for a more humane and more participatory and more shared, a better existence for all of us.
We're talking about civil rights. We're talking about voting rights. We're talking about housing. We're talking about fair wages. We're talking about all of the legal things that are now in place that we all benefit from.
And the Worcester City Council also passed a resolution during their meeting Tuesday night commemorating the anniversary. They are also encouraging residents to observe the solemn occasion. Brittany Schaefer, Worcester News Tonight.
And switching gears now, a gubernatorial candidate making his way to the city to field questions for local residents. Bob Massey hopes to be on the ballot for governor later this year. The veteran Democrat answered questions about voting, public transportation, as well as school safety. Massey says if elected governor, justice is one of his main focuses.
I have a heart that burns for economic justice, racial justice, gender justice. I mean, to me, that is our obligation as human beings, as citizens of the United States, is to seek justice.
Wednesday's forum was hosted by the Worcester branch of the NAACP. Dozens gathered together today at the Worcester Art Museum for a naturalization ceremony. 49 people took their oath of allegiance to become American citizens. Our Rosalind Flaherty was at today's ceremony and has more.
It's been Hernan Sanchez's dream to become a U.S. citizen. He came to the U.S. 13 years ago from Argentina, and Wednesday his dream became a reality.
Really exciting. Actually, I got more emotional than I expected.
Sanchez joined 48 other new citizens sworn in during a naturalization ceremony at the Worcester Art Museum.
Museums are places where people come together, not where people are divided. And I think this makes it even more meaningful.
Nicole Connolly came to the U.S. from Germany 22 years ago. She says she started the process to become a citizen last year.
About time. I'm part American a long time ago now, so this is home to me.
She says she is now looking forward to being able to vote.
Able to have a voice here in this country and in my city and Massachusetts.
Sanchez says he's also looking forward to having more of a voice. His wife Lindsay says she's excited for their new journey.
To share life and not be worried about finishing his citizenship status anymore. I know he's been looking forward to voting for a long time, so it'll be fun to go to vote together for the first time.
Rosalind Flaherty, Worcester News Tonight.
The Massachusetts Department of Transportation is reminding drivers of road closures on I-90 beginning tonight. The on and off ramps will be closed at exit 10A in Millbury from 10 p.m. tonight until 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. According to Mass DOT, the closures are due to a resurfacing project. Cars exiting the interstate will be redirected to exit 11 in Millbury, and cars entering will be redirected to exit 11 or exit 10 in Auburn. With new service coming in May and more in the future, the Worcester Regional Airport is becoming a transportation hub. As our Chandler Walsh explains, Massport says they're hoping to increase the number of passengers using the airport each year.
Additions are coming to Worcester Regional Airport. A daily JetBlue flight to JFK begins on May 3rd. And Massport CEO Tom Glynn says they'll announce the airport is increasing commercial service beyond the New York flights soon.
So we're very optimistic that some of the other airlines have paid attention to the success of JetBlue, and so they're interested in maybe making some announcements.
Worcester County Sheriff and Massport Chairman Lou Evangelitis says construction on the airport's Category 3 landing system is finished. The $32 million lighting system allows planes to fly into the airport in poor weather.
It will most likely be activated very shortly. I think it's going to planning around the May 3rd flights through JetBlue and to JFK.
The Cat 3 is required to go through elaborate FAA testing after construction. Glynn stopped short of saying the testing and approval is complete.
So we now have the same landing system at Worcester that you have at Logan. So that'll reduce some of the flight cancellations of the past.
Massport hopes to bring more passengers to the airport. Glynn says the JFK flights and new announcements will add to their momentum.
We hope we'll get back to the kind of glory days when they had 500,000 passengers a year. Right now we're doing maybe 130,000 a year.
Evangelitis says Worcester is one of the fastest growing regions in New England. He wants the airport to be the secondary market to Logan Airport and says it can handle an increase in passengers.
Right here out of Worcester, helping our community, getting people to more and more destinations directly from Worcester. It's just such good stuff.
Chandler Walsh, Worcester News Tonight.